Hello there. Are you ready for another bedtime story? Brilliant. Tonight's bedtime story is called Mr. Perfect. It is written by Roger Hargreaves with pictures by Adam Hargreaves. It was a perfect summer's day, and on this perfect summer's day, Mr. Perfect was looking for even more perfect than usual. He didn't have a hair out of place. Mr. Perfect lived in Tip Top Cottage, and on those perfect summer days, his house was also looking even more perfect than usual, not a curtain out of place. I suppose you're wondering why Tip Top Cottage was looking so perfect. I shall tell you. It was Mr. Perfect's birthday, and he was going to have a party. There was a knock at the door. "Perfect!" cried Mr. Perfect. "How very kind of you," he said, when he saw all his guests had brought wonderful-looking presents. "Please do come in, and if no one minds, we'll open the presents later." Nobody minded in the least. Well, almost nobody. "What's that?" roared Mr. Uppity. "I don't have any time to waste, you know. You'd better make sure we don't get bored today." Do you think that upset Mr. Perfect? Of course not. Mr. Perfect had perfect manners, unlike rude Mr. Uppity. "Oh, no, my dear Mr. Uppity, we shan't be bored today," he replied. "First of all, we shall dance." And everybody danced, even Mr. Uppity. But although he danced, Mr. Uppity couldn't manage a smile. Unfortunately, Mr. Clumsy, being his usual clumsy self, broke a pile of plates. Do you think that upset Mr. Perfect? Of course not. Not at all. "Don't worry, Mr. Clumsy," said Mr. Perfect, and being the perfect person he was, and not in the least bit clumsy, he produced a whole lot more plates. Made of cardboard. Then he bought a cake. It was huge. It looked wonderful. It smelt terrific. And Mr. Greedy thought it was delicious. He gobbled up the whole cake in 3 seconds flat. There wasn't a crumb left for anybody else. Do you think that upset Mr. Perfect? Not in the least. Being perfect, he had already guessed what would happen. Quickly, he bought out lots of small cakes. There was plenty for everybody, even Mr. Perfect. But as he was not ready, he only ate one. One cake was just perfect for him. Once everything had been eaten, Mr. Perfect opened his presents. He said as many thank yous as there were presents. Well, not quite. "What about my present?" cried Mr. Mean. Mr. Mean's parcel was so small that Mr. Perfect had not seen it. Mr. Perfect opened the tiny parcel, wrapped in newspaper. "Oh, Mr. Mean," said Mr. Perfect, "you've given me a lump of coal. How kind of you. It's delightful." "If I'd known, I'd only have given him half of a lump," grumbled Mr. Mean. "That's it. I've had enough," cried Mr. Uppity suddenly. "I'm fed up with you, Mr. Perfect, and do you know why? I'll tell you. I have discovered that there was a most enormous, unbearable, exasperating fault with you." "Would you be so kind to tell me what that might be?" asked Mr. Perfect as politely as ever. "Don't you understand?" cried Mr. Uppity. "Your fault is that you have no faults." That story was called Mr. Perfect. I hope you liked that story. But now it's time to go to bed. But until then, I'll see you again soon for another one. Goodbye.